Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and I want to welcome you to the show where we share some wit and wisdom and some wonderful experts to help women navigate career and life challenges. And most importantly, to let you know that you're not alone. Each week we share resources to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. And we stream live weekly every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming platforms like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where you can interact with us. But if you prefer to listen to your favorite shows, we're also on all the podcast channels. So if you find something inspiring in today's episode and you want more, please subscribe to your favorite channel. Leave us a comment, share your favorite episodes so we can make more ripples in the world for women. So today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, resilience. And it's one of my guest's favorite topics as well. So I thought it would be a great idea to bring her on to the show so you could eavesdrop on what we have to say about it. Dr. Christiane Schroeter is a college professor with a Ph.D. in health economics. She's a renowned accountability coach and host of her Happy Healthy Hustle podcast. Say that 3 times fast. With a background in foods and nutrition and over 2 decades of coaching, Christiane brings a wealth of knowledge about cultivating resilience and wellness in the demanding business world. She'll share techniques to pinpoint personal and professional stressors, the role of community in fostering resilience, real world examples of optimism driving business success, and strategies to balance wellness with work, and so much more. We have a lot to cover in this hour, so let's get started. Welcome, Christiane. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm certainly excited to be here. And over the next talk, we will share a few of my favorite sequence with regard to resilience. I'm really excited to be here and do that.
That's great. And we're going to cover a bunch of different things that all feed into our ability to flex our resilience muscles in a better way. So let's get started. Let's pinpoint those personal and professional stressors and how we can maybe lessen their impact.
Amazing. Yeah. And of course, I like the focus here on women in business because as women in business, we tend to ignore that what our body is really telling us. Frequently, we experience it maybe by being tired, but we're thinking, oh, we keep on pushing on, we keep on going on. And then we might notice that maybe we get headaches or maybe we get stomach pain. So our body is like nearly like a little alarm system and bells are going off. It's like, oh, you have to maybe like slow it down a little bit, take a step back. There's too much on your plate. You can't balance it anymore. And sometimes I work with clients and I ask them, when did this start? And then they start thinking about it and they say, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it started a long time ago and I just kept on pushing it to the side. And I call it a little bit of putting yourself on the back burner mentality. So the goal really is today that we're kind of going to peel back like an onion of what's really going on inside of those stressors and how we can maybe pinpoint stressors in your life and find some easy tools that will build that resilience, creating a blueprint that makes you go forward stronger. Because when we think about bouncing back with more resilience, I don't want that you bounce back to where you were. I actually would like that you bounce back stronger and more prepared for the next challenge that's going to come at you. And of course, that also means we're going to tune in more with our body and what it actually communicates with us. So let's get started with some very simple tricks.
All right, so let's do just that. So, what are some of those tactics that we can employ when those stressors do jump into our lives and disrupt us?
Well, earlier I talked about the onion, and that's maybe like how you should think about this. Think about the core of the onion as your own body. So you have to really start investigating yourself, what is really going on. And deep down, you have roots. And think about a plant in the desert. The deeper you are grounded and you're more in tune with who you are, the more you're going to withstand any challenge that's going to come your way. So think about the desert, the extreme heat, maybe long time, no water, maybe there is wind, there might be storms. And that's kind of like what resilience really is. There's unexpected challenges. There are challenges that might us to endure long stretches of stress. So how can we get rid of that? That means we have to actually become much more grounded. We have to start planting those roots. And that means maybe what you really need to do is schedule time for yourself. As hard as it sounds, for me, as a woman in business, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. So if I would not schedule time, for instance, to work out, and it does not have to be an hour, it could just be 15 or 30 minutes, I probably wouldn't do it. Again, I would have that put myself on the back burner mentality.
Yeah.
Also, if I wouldn't start writing down little goals and things that I actually accomplished, I also wouldn't start celebrating wins. So you have to be much more in tune with who you are and really like thinking about the onion, strengthening the core and starting planting down roots.
I love that. I love the image that conjures. I don't like onions, but I absolutely resonated with your desert analogy. Living in Arizona, yeah, if we don't deeply root, a strong wind will blow us over, and from the roots will come right out of the ground. So that is a wonderful image for me, to kind of demonstrate what it means to be resilient. So, and I love what you said. You don't want to just bounce back to where you were. You want to bounce forward, actually, don't you?
Yeah, and I have to be honest, I don't like onions either. The one thing is that the description of layers is
Yeah,
sometimes as women in business of how we are, because we have all
so
these
true.
different hats we are wearing
Yeah,
and these layers like a mom, an entrepreneur, we are working in the corporate world and we are doing all these different things. And these are just layers and roles we take on. And so once we start shutting it down, which is really what I would like that you do by exploring who you really are, what brings you joy, all of a sudden you're realizing, oh, I have not done this particular activity for years and years. So I have some clients that tell me, huh, I recently started drawing. And this is not a competition. We are not becoming the next creative artists. It's just actually tapping into what brings you joy. Is
right.
that drawing? Because that's your self care time right there, letting your creative child in your head play. And we frequently tend to push that to the side and we think, oh, no, no, no. It's not important. I don't need to do this right now. It's so important to strengthen your core because it will build that
Yeah,
resilience.
yeah, absolutely. That's so true. I there's another aspect of resilience here that I think is really important. It's something I talk a lot about with my clients. And it is that, and I said this at the beginning of the show, we are not alone in this, right? There are many people who are going through very similar things to what we've been through, or what we're going through. How important, from your perspective, is it to build a robust support network to help us build resilience?
Perfect. So that actually is the second step. The first one is we need to become more in tune with who we are. The second step is we need to build a support network of mentors, colleagues, friends, family, and maybe even people that you don't know yet. Network with other professionals. And the reason why I'm kind of smiling with that is because I'm actually deep down an introvert, and it's hard at first to network and make those contacts happen. It's not something you just throw yourself out there and you're like, okay, can we be friends? That's not really how it works. However, think about the importance of actually doing that, because we are not living in this in isolation, and frequently challenges that we experience may not be exactly the same for somebody else. However, it might be that they have experienced similar circumstances. And I'm really emphasizing the similar here because we are all unique in our makeup of experiences. But think a little bit again, like about that tree that we talked about with the strong roots. No tree is the same. They all have rings that are completely lined up differently, and they are basically, they have the tree bark, they have different root systems, etc. But what I'm really emphasizing is we don't want to just have lots of people in our life, which would be like these shallow roots that are just like all over the place. It's not a competition about finding 10,000 followers on Instagram or anything. That's not what it is. It's rather building a strong system of a few supporters that you can reach out to when you maybe experience a time of stress. And they will honestly help you and support you. And that will be your root system. So I would rather like that you have a few deep connections, coming back to our root experience, than having a lot of people that don't really actually know you deep down very well. And they will do what I call, actually in my classes, in my experience, in my entrepreneurship classes, I call it the mom effect. They will tell you, oh no, this is great. You're doing amazing. Fantastic job. Keep it up. Because they think that that's what you want to hear, where your true friends know exactly when you're maybe not feeling well, and they will give you honest and authentic feedback and truly support you.
Yeah, I love that. I think of this group of people as our personal board of directors. So if we are the CEO of our lives, which is what I'd like to think of us, each of us, we are in command of our lives, right? And every great CEO needs a board of directors. So if those few people are people that we trust, who will tell us the truth and will support us and push us when we need to be pushed and pull us back when we need that, and be there for us truly, then we that I love the way um, you described those people as part of your root system. It's a wonderful image. They help to ground you. I love that.
Yeah, because think about trees needing nutrients.
Yeah.
And that's what your friends will be there for. And I also want to point out that different friends might come in at different parts in your life. So different resilience challenges, let's not call it struggles, challenges might call for a different mentor or a different person. So
Right.
it's nearly like in your brain, you have like this Rolodex, which is this old fashioned way of writing down names on like a little note card and putting it on a spiral bound little machinery. So you're going through in your brain, you're like, oh, okay, so today I'm really struggling in creating to-do lists in my business, and I'm not quite sure how to visually put this into a beautiful aesthetic way. Who has maybe experienced this before?
Right.
And then you reach out to that person.
Right.
So that's really the goal, that you nearly have friends that are like nutrients, like little vitamins or spices in your spice rack. We don't need 500 of those spices. We just need a few solid ones. And then you reach for them and they will spice up your life and help you to overcome that challenge, because jointly you're kind of like talking it through. And all of a sudden, just alone by the conversation, you are able to maybe sound out some ideas that might have been just in your head by yourself.
Right. Love that. They'll spice up your life. That's a great way to think of it. All right. So um, there's another aspect of this, and you are a beautiful demonstration of having a positive outlook. So, how does that positive outlook empower you? So, tell us a story about where a positive outlook has empowered you or one of your clients to navigate through some maybe significant obstacles.
Oh, I have a beautiful story, and the audience actually going to love this because it's rooted at a time when we were all overcoming a challenge, when we all needed resilience. It's actually during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, which is truly how I would define a resilience need, or a little lifeline that we all needed during that time, completely unexpected challenge. Nobody saw this coming. And many people were very unprepared and overcame a very hard and challenging time. What I noticed on social media was there were some accounts and they were called the good news of the day. And it was essentially, maybe it was TV stations that created little video clips of people doing good deeds, very simple deeds, and sharing it with the world. And just by watching them, you already felt good. It was this positive enforcement. When we watch some child that walks by in a stroller and that smiles at you, you can't help but smile back. You're like, oh my gosh, how cute. So it was kind of like this. So you watch those positive good news of the day videos and you immediately felt like, man, those people are doing good things. And all what they did was, maybe they were in line at Starbucks and they paid the drink for the person behind them in line, $5, and it made somebody's day. I can do something like that. Or maybe they helped somebody cross the street, or maybe they basically just texted a friend, I really appreciate having you in my life. So I started doing the good news movement with some of my friends. And one of my friends worked from home, had a really hard time working from home, because I think that when we are, especially in corporate world, so used to going to work and seeing our network right there, and all of a sudden that network is basically the network of one, where you are the CEO and you have to entertain yourself all day. It can be very challenging working from home. And there's also not that transition between I'm at work, I'm at home. So basically, either way, always at work or you always feel at home. So I started texting every day the good news of the day. What was your good news of the day? And I tell you, and I love that Maria pointed this out at the beginning of this episode, it is like a muscle. At the beginning, it wasn't easy to think about what is my good news of the day. I don't even know how my day might not have been very eventful. It seems like it was just like yesterday. I can sometimes call it with my clients, we're going through the dishwasher cycle: pre rinse, main wash, dry, go it again, switch it on. Don't think of your days like that, a dishwasher cycle. Think like, oh, hmm, today my day actually was a little different, because instead of maybe meeting with these people in the morning, I was able to go for a quick walk. And that might have been the good news of my day, because I went for a 5-minute walk and I enjoyed the outdoors. And we talked about this earlier, the step one, where you really have to dig down deep and build those deep roots. So the good news of the day movement completely changed that person's outlook. In fact, sometimes when I forgot to text my good news of the day by 6 o'clock, I got a text message saying, I haven't heard from you. What is your good news of the day? I'm waiting for it. And you can see how I'm weaving accountability into this right now. I'm an accountability coach too, because it makes you create a good news habit, which is really what it's all about.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, this does not need to involve money. This does not need to be a complicated thing. I mean, it takes about 15 seconds maybe to write the good news. Text message is not like a long time. And sometimes we just send each other a picture. The good news was I noticed that spring is coming and the flowers are starting to bloom. The good news is I went outside. Oh my gosh, you're going to love this. Actually, I saw this 2 days ago. One of my neighbors has a big lemon tree and I put a box out with a little sign that says free lemons, help yourself. So I took a picture of it. It's so sweet, right? I
Yeah.
love lemons. And so for me, it was like, that's good news of the day right there.
Yeah. You're so right. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It a very small thing can be a big thing to somebody else, right? It can be walking down the street and smiling at someone, and you have no idea that that person was having such a bad day, and that smile just made them feel better. You just never know how sharing that good news could impact someone else. And having that positive outlook on your day allows you to kind of see where the good news is, no matter how insignificant it might seem. I love that. That was such a great story. That the good news movement. I love that. I think that's something that a lot of our listeners are going to pick up on. I know I am. That's a great idea.
And you can even combine those three steps: the self care, the network, and the good news movement. So you can share with others, so your network, what you did in terms of self care, and you bring positivity by sharing it and then finding out what others are doing. So it's
Right.
really a muscle that you're building by combining those three. And again, very simple strategy, yet very effective in building the resilience.
And it also you also create this role model kind of effect where you are sharing what you're doing that is positive for you and potentially encouraging someone else to think, I that looks easy to do, maybe I can do that too. So you become a role model for someone else. I love that.
Actually, and
Yeah.
and you are so right about this because I'm doing the same thing every night at dinner time. So another way to build resilience is you need to say no and you need to create boundaries. And I have very strong personal boundaries. We always reserve Sunday as a family day.
Mm.
Don't let my children schedule any play dates or we don't do any elaborate activities. In fact, I sometimes enjoy seeing my children being bored on Sunday. The other thing that's absolutely a non-negotiable is we don't really watch TV while we eat dinner. It's a family time. And during that family dinner, we always share what was your favorite part of the day.
Hmm.
And I have to actually tell you, Maria, we sometimes have friends from my children over and they're very surprised because we start dinner, like we hold each other's hands and we say in German, Guten Appetit, which means enjoy your meal. It's a habit. It kind of like is a boundary. We're starting dinner now, right? And so
Right.
phones, everything, nope, we're starting it now. This is like when we click record, okay? And then we go around and we share. And when my children have their friends over, they're like, oh, well, they're going along with it, don't not knowing the words, and then they have to think, "Oh, I don't even know." Like they talk about the good news, and I tell them, you don't need to know it now. I'll give you time, listen in, and then we'll share it." Because frequently I see people doing this gratitude practice during time of Thanksgiving, which I absolutely adore. And I like that time of the year when we are thinking a little bit what we're grateful for. Why reserve it to just that one day or time of the year? We
Yeah.
can do this every single
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a story that one of my mentors told. It tells all the time. When she was growing up, her father at dinner time always would ask the family, "What did you do for someone else today?"
Oh,
And that's just such a great example to set for children growing up, right? It's not what happened today, what happened good today, what did you do that was good today? What did you do for someone else today? I love that. Same kind of thing, but it's just it grounds us, right, in what matters most. Love that. All right, so let's talk next about how maintaining our physical health fosters mental toughness and how we can maybe incorporate wellness routines into our very busy schedules. How do we do that and maintain the kind of the mental acuity that allows us to be more resilient?
Oh, that's a really great question. And as I'm sitting here now at my desk, what you won't see is that under my desk, actually, I have a treadmill. And you might be laughing now and thinking, like, hold on, how does she do that? In fact, I frequently have calls, Zoom calls with multiple people. And one of my really big pet peeves is when you just see the portrait shot of somebody, but they don't have their camera on because I
Right.
want to talk to people. So
Right.
I have my camera on. However, what I do is frequently when I talk to people, especially when it's a one on one conversation where I'm not recording for my podcast or somebody else's podcast, I walk very slowly on a treadmill that's under my desk. Now, I'm not a fan of multitasking. I always think multitasking is a concept that we as humans think we can do, and in reality, actually, we
We
really can't.
Right.
So I always tell my children, no, 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 this is not working this way. Your brain will not do this. Okay. We don't need to watch TV and be on our phones and talk to our friends at the same time. This doesn't work this way. We're watching TV right now, or we're eating dinner, or we're on the phone. So multitasking in that sense, while you talk, you walk, is actually a proven strategy. I'm a professor that helps bring blood into your brain. So sometimes we sit and we get just so tired, or maybe we sit and our mind starts to wander. So the activity of a very slow walk, as I say, I'm not running on the treadmill. This is not a marathon I'm doing, actually helps you sometimes become into a rhythm. And at the same time, I'm usually very rhythmically walking, slow but rhythmically. It actually sometimes creates for me a little bit of nearly a structure of typing or scrolling or anything like that. And now when I'm in a Zoom call, I can honestly tell you that for me, it's a way to process the information too and to be more in tune with the person that's on the other side of my screen. So that's an easy way. On the desk treadmill, I have a standing desk and I just put the treadmill right there. And I call it walking and working. And it actually, during a typical Zoom call, brings me about 7,500 steps. So that's, about 3 miles. It's quite a bit, right? And I'm
Yeah.
very, very slow. That by no means going fast. It's just you put one foot in front of the other and you just keep on moving along.
So it's literally just keeping your body in motion while you're doing things that we do all the time. I don't have a standing desk, but now you have gotten me to think about that. How would I configure that here in my office? Um, but that's a great idea, just to be in motion while I can think about a lot of times when I'm just having a conversation. It's like having a conversation while I'm driving, right? Having a conversation while I'm making dinner,
Mhm.
right? You can have a conversation and do something else, and it actually enhances both things. I love that. I had not thought about it in that way before. That's a great standing desk, treadmill underneath. Okay, noted.
Got it. And I actually have a video that I posted on my YouTube channel where I'm showing you the ins and outs, and it's a quite entertaining video. Um, my husband always says I could have been a comedian, so the video is true me. There are some comical parts in there, so I would encourage you to check it out. And it's going to keep your attention because I'm really showing you exactly how I set up my office. Right now, you only see the surface, but I'm really going to peel it back and you see the whole thing. So,
Oh, that's great. That is great. That'll be great information for all of us to
yeah.
see how you've set that up. That'd be great. All right, so let's talk about something that can maybe take us out at the knees sometimes, and it can make us feel very unresilient. Failure.
Mhm.
What is your perspective on failure and how it plays into how we grow?
It's actually the second question that we always talk about at dinner. The first one is, what was your favorite part of the day? And the second question is, what did you fail with today? And what did you learn from that failure? So, see how I framed it right now?
Yeah.
I framed it in a way that the failure happened, not in a way to shame us or make us feel bad, but rather of teaching us failure is your own unique way of getting to you where you want to be. It's your own little pebble in the road that you might pick up, and that might make you stop for a moment. And then you keep going with that pebble in your hand, with that experience that you had that failure. So I frequently talk to my children about failure also in combination with fear. Fear and failure kind of being on the opposite spectrums of this. And I always say fear will crush more dreams than failure ever will. So by not applying for that scholarship because you're afraid to apply for it, by not applying for a certain job, by not putting yourself out there in a club or speaking on stage, you're not even trying. And yes, you might not succeed. But at the same time, I said might. I didn't say you will not. So don't ever think like the shouldn'ts and, oh, I know. I think that the fear of even getting started is really what keeping us back. And I frequently have clients that come to me and ask me a question, and I actually ask back. I say, I think you already know the answer to this. You just want to hear it from me because you're afraid to fail saying it out loud yourself. So think of a failure as more of an experience that you collect, and that experience will let you build the resilience that you need to go forward.
And there it is. There's the bouncing forward part, right? So bouncing up, bouncing forward. When we learn from the lessons that the failures, the things that didn't work out the way we hoped or in our favor, right? To see what the lesson is from that. I love your analogies. You pick it up and you hold the pebble in your hand and you go forward with that lesson. I love that. And that builds a sense of strength that the next time something like that happens, we have more tools in our treasure chest as resources to pull from so that we can approach the next situation that might be similar in a more resilient way with a stronger mindset that it may not be, I can't, but I didn't do it right that time, but I learned this, and this is how I'm going to do it this time. That's resilience.
Yeah, and it's, if you think about, the pebble analogy, it's nearly that at the end when you think about a journey, it's much more about the journey than it's actually about the destination where you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That at the end of the journey, all these pebbles formed something nearly like a bracelet, where you look at it and like, oh, well, these different experiences were actually all failures. But now looking at it, I enjoyed that experience because even though during the time it was challenging, looking back now, I know it made me get to where I am now and it made me a better person. And it also made me the person that somebody else might seek out for sharing that experience, which is really another way of building resilience, that you're becoming the authentic person that's talking openly about it. So you don't put it under a rug like, oh, it never happened. You're actually saying like, oh yeah, no, I mean, I had this happen to me and this is how I experienced it and this is how I overcame it. So sharing those
Right.
pebbles or showing it off is really what makes a good leader, but what also builds resilience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's proof to others that they can do it too. That it's been done before. So there's some encouragement in that. There's hope in that. And when we teach others what we've learned, it can instill hope in them, and that's just a beautiful cycle to be in. Love that. Okay. So, mental and emotional strength. Let's talk about that for a minute. What are some of the strategies that we can implement that will help cultivate the mental and emotional strength within us so we can become more resilient?
So there are some easy tools. And now when I'm going to mention them, you're probably going to smile and you think like, oh, I've heard of this before. I haven't tried it yet. But at the same time, now that I'm hearing it, maybe this gives you a little boost or a little nudge to try this again, like using another word from economics, the little nudging, right? So one way to build mental health is think of your head as like buzzing with all these different experiences, and there are just more and more experiences in there. And every so often, you need to nearly do something that I would call like a brain dump, where you're actually putting things down on paper. And those could be good experiences, those could be bad experiences. But it's immensely important for your mental health that you are actually putting pen to paper. I personally will like pen to paper situation because there's a science that actually shows there's a connection between what you write and how your brain processes it. In writing down little gratitude or writing down a diary, that is really how you process what you've been through, but how you also build mental strength because you're allowing everything that's buzzing around to come out. And you can actually then look back through the pages and you're like, oh my gosh, last month, wow, that was a tough month right there. And here I am, I moved on. So it nearly makes you aware about what happens in your life by writing it down. But at the same time, it also builds a catalog of experiences because we are like essentially carrying those experiences around. And sometimes we just feel, oh, we need to all bottle it inside. The bottling inside is not a good strategy. As I say, share it with others, but then also write it down. It does not have to be a lot. You could even purchase a little diary that has prompts in it. I have a beautiful diary that's called 365 Days for 5 years. So every day there's a prompt in it, and all what you do is you answer the prompt with a simple sentence. So it's like starting a sentence and then you finish it. And that does not require a lot of time at all. Again, it's maybe like 30 seconds, just like when you texted that friend the good news of the day. But it allows you to build mental strength because A, you're focusing on yourself, but B, you're also putting down something on paper. And it makes you appreciate more how you're growing because you need to adopt that growth mindset and really embracing who you are and how much stronger everything that you're putting down on paper is making you.
And I think as I'm listening to you talk, Christiana, I am thinking, I'm going back to the core. So you are, with each of these strategies, we are continuing to deepen our roots and strengthen our core, and that is what ultimately, having mental strength, emotional strength, physical strength are all parts of being resilient, being able to adapt to any situation that might arise, any adversity, and seeing it for what it is rather than being derailed by it. So I'd love that you're going through each of these pieces that help us. There's so many different components, right, that we can work on to become resilient. So let's talk about boundaries. You mentioned this before. You established some boundaries at the dinner table. Let's talk about how crucial it is that we all establish boundaries, so that they protect us and uh, and and actually feed us. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I actually have a fun comparison to boundaries because we talked earlier about the tree in the desert that has a deep roots, and there's maybe lack of water, maybe there's extreme heat, maybe there's even a sandstorm or anything like that. I sometimes think of boundaries as like, if you think it's like maybe a cactus, it's like the little thorns you nearly need to put up. It's essentially like your outer armor. And frequently, especially as women in business, we are not very good in creating that armor on the outside. People ask us, and we're like, oh, yeah, sure, I can do this. And then we think, well, why in the world did I say yes to this right now?
Right.
So the word no is a muscle that we really need to train. And think again about the comparison to the cactus in the desert. It's nearly like we sometimes need to establish a way that we build little thorns that immediately like, ouch, no, 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 not going to do this. This is like your little alarm system that says, no, 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 I should not say yes to this particular situation. So I have to honestly share with you, when I had my children, I was so bad in saying no that what I had to do is I had wrote down like 5 sentences that very kindly told people that I'm not available for these situations on a little sticky note. And I frequently got the little sticky note out and I looked at them and then I said, oh, what's a good sentence I could say right now? Until I finally had those sentences in my head. Because I was so afraid of saying no that I thought that's not going to sound very good right now. So what I did was I wrote down these 5 sentences that were very polite, but they were a very kind way of saying no. And eventually I built boundaries because then, as I say, with our little thorns, I started to become much more tuned in raveling back when somebody asked me what it would really mean for me and my time. And I started to think more, when I say yes to this, something else will have to give. And I
Right.
don't want to give up that other thing. So I have to think of saying no immediately, building the armor so that it doesn't even penetrate my personal life right now, because I don't want that thing. And saying no at the beginning is much easier than, yeah, let me think about this. And then you have to respond. It's like, oh, another thing on your to do list. Don't do that. Immediately say no. And then you don't even have to deal with it later. We need to be wise about our time.
Oh, absolutely. You're so right about that. And I am so curious. I love the way that you put this, that you, because you were so bad at it, and so many of us are, you actually came up with it's like your Rolodex of no responses, right? So that I want to know what they are. Can you remember all 5 of yours? Can you
Oh
tell
yeah,
us?
for sure. So the one thing is, I really appreciate you asking. It really shows your trust in me, and yet you feel I would be a very good person. And while I do appreciate this, at the same time, I have to kindly decline, because at this time I'm really valuing my family time, and this particular activity would definitely take time away from this. If you would like, I can recommend somebody else for this activity, but otherwise, good luck, and I know you're going to do a fantastic job with it.
Very kind. And it's a no.
Yeah, and I'm basically saying, look, I'm not saying no because I don't like you. I'm basically
Right,
saying no
right.
because I have my priorities set on my family right there.
There you go. And we all have the right to put our priorities first. We all have that right. Is there another one?
Another one would, and that's sometimes dangerous too, where you think a little bit about holding on the person. Another one would just be that, well, in my current business, the way that I operate, I'm basically doing a one-woman show. I'm doing this by myself. So please understand that this current commitment would definitely stretch me beyond my limits, and I would feel that it would go into more than what I can handle. And now sometimes people are afraid. They are like, oh, maybe she can handle it in the future if she's having assistance or anything like that. But what I really make sure is that they understand this is me, a real person responding. And this is also me that needs to get all these different things done, which is another way of building resilience. You need to delegate.
Yeah,
Delegation is really important to building resilience. And so
yeah,
sometimes what we need to nearly say in the response when you say no is, you could say something like, I love that you're delegating. However, for me to take this on, I would basically take time away from other important tasks. And sometimes, to be honest with you, this is maybe the third response that I frequently use. I say I wouldn't be at my best, because if I would do this particular job, I would not give you my very best performance, which I truly would love to give you, but I wouldn't be able to because of the other responsibilities that I have already agreed to.
right,
And so I'm
right.
not going to give you my half. Yes, I'm not going to give you my half activity. I would rather like to decline and say that I'm not going to be the right person for this.
Those are all great examples. Thank you for sharing those. And it's explaining why, right? It's giving people the courtesy of not just a no, but this is why. I love that you just said the one you just said. I would not be at my best. I have my plate is full, and if I took on one more thing, I wouldn't be able to do any of it well. So, I hope you understand, but I can't agree to this right now. I love that. That's great examples, Christiana. Thank you for those. Okay, I wish we could talk about this forever.
Who knows?
Oh no, no, boundary. But we have a boundary today of time. So I'm going to ask you to help us wrap this up in a bow and share with us maybe 3 key takeaways that you would like everyone to remember from today's conversation. What would those be?
I would encourage you to first dig down deep inside and really explore your own superpower. Make it a strength of you. Oh, I like the little thumb that comes up there.
Yeah.
It's very meaningful. It's truly
Thank you
good
for
with a
that.
thumbs up right and left, even on camera. I love that. So the first step is make your own superpower something that you're aware of and that you can use to shine, and you step out in the world and share that light with others. So once you get that all cleared up, now I mentioned others. You got to build your board of directors, as Maria mentioned. Find people that truly mean something to you, and people that you already know you can help them out too, because it's a two-way street, right? So you have to find friends that can support you, and you also need to send them your good news to elevate when they might need a little positive word during the day. And then thirdly, what I would encourage you to do is think a little bit about different activities that you could do that you have not tried before. So stretch your boundaries. Now you have your own strength, you have your board of directors, but what is it on your bucket list that you always wanted to do? Because sometimes what happens is that you put your head down and every single day you think eventually I'm going to do it. And then you look back at your career and you think, I actually never did that. Don't let that happen. Write it down and schedule a time when things will happen. I mentioned earlier that I worked with a person that started drawing and getting out there, creative artist. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's picking up piano lessons. Maybe I talked to somebody just this week and she took a cruise to Alaska. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I was the youngest person on the cruise ship," which made me realize it was a great decision that I'm doing this because I didn't wait until I'm retired. That's what needs to happen. You need to think a little bit. Resilience also comes from making gifts to yourself and looking at your bucket list as something that you always dreamed of, and you're not afraid of failing. You're rather just tackling the dreams and you're making them reality.
I love that. That's three great takeaways. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Christiane, I know that people are going to want to reach out to you and continue this conversation. So tell us, what is the one best way that they can reach out to you?
Well, I would love to invite you to become part of my accountability group. It's called the Mastermind Collective, and you can find information on my website, hellohappynest.com. Hello Happy Nest, because as I mentioned, we are building the hello, we're saying happy, and our nest is our own true self that we are finding through an activity of superpower. I'm also sharing with you a fantastic blueprint to build your resilience. So you can download that for free. And they will give you some steps and guidance already in getting started and getting your resilience built. It has worksheets in there, it has words of encouragement, and it's truly something that will help you in not just bouncing back, but actually bouncing forward with your resilience.
That's fabulous. And all of those links will be in the show notes below. Christiana, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to connect with the audience. And if you're curious, I have a wonderful teaser as well, because I have a podcast. It's called Happy Healthy Hustle. And I interviewed the fantastic Maria here, and we're going to release this episode. So you can tune in and find out a little bit more about how she looks at resilience. And there are some true gems in there. So I would love for you to tune into that episode as well. Happy Healthy Hustle.
Thank you so much for that shout out. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to hearing that myself. All right. So, again, Christiana, thank you. And for those watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of this community. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, share it. Make more ripples around the world, as I said earlier. Creating and sharing resources for women is one of my favorite things to do, and every conversation we have on this show is a resource for someone. Another favorite thing I love is being a career and life coach for women navigating challenging times and helping them get unstuck, explore new possibilities, and find harmony in their careers and their lives. So, if something resonates with you and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out and let's talk. Let's continue this conversation. The links to connect with us are in the show notes below, as I said. And now let's meet again here next Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.